Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time.
And impersonating an officer in DeKalb. Earlier this month, a bench warrant was issued for his arrest in Gwinnett County. According to court records, he failed to show up for his arraignment on a separate charge of impersonating a police officer and theft. After only 6 hours of deliberation, an Irwin County jury found Ryan Duke not guilty of killing a Scylla beauty queen, Tara Grinstead. Now, here's the breakdown of the verdict. Not guilty of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and burglary. The jury did
problem these counties are dealing with right now.
They're going to commit a crime. They will go from Gwinnett County to Fulton County to Cobb County to DeKalb County.
These leaders also hit on policies that would focus on taking criminalization out of mental health, as well as managing the inequity when it comes to pay for Metro Atlanta law enforcement.
Battles with the Russians. This area was liberated earlier this month after weeks of intense fighting.
The situation, of course, is very sad. It's a genocide of the Ukrainian people.
At a nearby school, the body of a Russian soldier lays face up in the grass. Inside, empty ammunition boxes filled the gymnasium. Russian forces used this school as a headquarters in their initial attack on Kharkiv. They've been pushed back about 10 miles from here, but the front lines remain active as Ukraine's second largest city is under attack.
The armed forces of Ukraine continue advancing to liberate the Kharkiv region. But in Donbass, the occupiers are trying to exert even more pressure. It is a hell there, and it is not an exaggeration.
President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke about the Russian offensive in eastern Ukraine, where at least 12 civilians were killed today in shelling that occurred in the central Donbass region. Further south, in Mariupol, Ukrainian commanders remain holed up in the besieged Azovstal steel plant, as new video shows Ukrainian soldiers arriving at a Russian-controlled settlement near the city of Donetsk. The Russians claim these are some of up to 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers who surrendered at the Mariupol steel plant so far. The Russian Defense Ministry says tonight that all Ukrainian fighters have surrendered at that steel plant in the southern city of Mariupol. And here in Kharkiv, more incoming artillery tonight as Russia keeps this city in its sights. In Kharkiv, Trey Yingst, Fox News.
New tonight, a policy in place in March of 2020. President Biden was set to lift the restriction on Monday. Earlier tonight, a judge in Louisiana ruled the policy will stay in place while litigation continues.
And you ask any Border Patrol agent, they will tell you they need a resounding policy to stop the flow of illegals coming across the border.
Utilizing this very mean-spirited policy to turn away women and children that are seeking help from our country is absolutely inhumane and wrong.
Department of Justice officials plan to appeal the judge's ruling. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland announces new.
After the Civil War, 152 years later, the task to combat hate-fueled violence remains central to the department's mission.
Garland announced the department will now be issuing guidance on steps law enforcement and community organizations can take to raise awareness about rising hate crimes. It will provide grant opportunities for states to create hate crime reporting hotlines. According to the latest statistics from the FBI, hate crimes are at its highest level in more than a decade. Authorities say two people comes after newly discovered emails now show Jenny Thomas urged Republican lawmakers to choose their own slate of electors. She argued results giving now President Joe Biden a victory in the state were marred by fraud. The revelations were first published by the Washington Post today. Thomas previously wrote former President Trump's chief of staff encouraging him to work to overturn the 2020 election. Justices will announce their ruling ahead of the summer session ending. The wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, they say a woman who was among those trying to run away was critically injured when she fell onto a rail at a nearby subway station. Police haven't released the names or ages of the dead. The shooting comes amid a surge in deadly violence in Chicago in recent years. The Alabama inmate who escaped with the help of a
appreciate how much common ground there is between us. That was one of the things that really impressed me. I know your first session like this was in Ohio, I guess, shortly after the election in 2016. And the participants there talked about, finding this humanity and realizing that they had more in common than they ever kind of imagined possible. And importantly, more than the media reflects back to us. And there seemed to be a bit of animosity about the media, reflecting a much more polarized America than really exists. Has this been your common experience?
Well, it's certainly true that the current media environment contributes a lot to our polarization and makes us believe that there's really just two teams, and you have to pick one of those teams and be really loyal to the talking points and to the leaders of your chosen side. And we really like to bring people together to kind of explode those notions and show people that each side is not a monolith, that it's likely that you're going to share a lot of your values and your beliefs with folks on the other side. So I've moderated a lot of workshops, and I think without fail, at each one of them, someone has said at the end that they're a lot closer to those folks on the other side than they realized. It's really about bringing people together to disabuse them of those stereotypes.
Like with many things, it isn't easy. The American Enterprise Institute examined a lot of surveys and found problems with methodology, conflicting results, and dynamics that were underappreciated, like why working women aren't coming back to the labor force. So rather than delve into all of this, we invited our next guest to give us a hands-on view of the issue. With us now is Tom Copeland. He's an expert in the business of family child care, working in the space for over 40 years as a trainer, advocate, and the author of 9 books. He's crisscrossed the country and knows a thing or two about how all of this works. Tom, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tom, is there a crisis in child care in America?
There's always been a child care crisis for decades. Parents can't afford to pay what providers need to live on. And that has always been the case. And we've always had a problem of low quality care and people leaving the child care field because they're not earning enough money. The pandemic has exacerbated this across the board. And it's meant that child care providers have left the field, they've retired, or they've quit, they've moved on to other jobs that pay more. They've closed down their business because they got COVID. It's gotten worse during the pandemic.
Is it something that's permanent because people have left the industry and closed, that it won't bounce back?
In this new environment, it may mean that more parents are working at home and therefore need fewer hours of childcare during their week. But women aren't going back into the home and are not going to be working. So there's always going to be a need for childcare. Does that mean it's going to be met by the current system of childcare centers and licensed or regulated family childcare providers? Or are we going to see more unregulated, illegal childcare programs spring up to meet the need? Or is government going to come in and establish more government-run childcare programs? That's hard to say at this point, but the need for childcare is not going to go away.
That's interesting.
Yet for some reason, we're focused more on making people feel more inclusive with their pronouns.
Put America first. Prevent people who have associations with white power.
Women's rights, and then environmental rights. It has a lot to do with equality.
This issue with abortion be handled a lot differently.
Try to refit like the whole abortion thing going on.
Culture wars and not having people argue with each other over things.
Not promoting the lie.
The inflation that's been happening, the housing markets.
Closing our borders would be a big thing.
It's called the economy. Simple.
Honesty. It's scary, really, isn't it? You know, that you're putting all your trust in them.
Homeland Security, to be honest.
Building a strong team, and especially at the federal level, is absolutely important.
The validity of the election is one. At the moment, I'm frozen. I've never been on TV before.
immigration because I'm a first generation Haitian American. Shout out to my mom.
Just to be loyal, to be honest.
It's the abortion issue, making sure we have a strong economy and also limiting the amount of crime. Dealing with the LGBT community, inflation concerns, as well as return to work.
Abortion rights for women, student loan forgiveness, less policing also would be ideal.
Not to get in the way of our freedom. I don't like that some elected officials want to close down people's businesses until they were out bankrupt and out of business after generations of building that business.
I really would like a Green Party to win. Clean water, clean living, giving more money to the people that do work because the taxes are taken out anyway.
Like a president that's actually for the people.
Yeah, like equal job opportunities, just rights for minorities in general. A Congress that works.
Game, 1 of 3 homers on this night for the Braves. Here's another one of them, courtesy of Dansby Swanson, who just loves hitting against the Marlins. Second inning goes deep to left, makes it 4-0 Braves. Marlins trying to come back with Jorge Soler. We've seen this before, right? Towering home run to left field. Looks very, you can't even be mad at this guy. Come on, it's Jorge Soler.
Been a little bit interesting this year. It's just been nice and steady. The analogy I've used about his season, he got that win at Dover, but he's just been hitting it right down the middle of the fairway. He's not been driving the green, but he's been nice and steady all year long. That's the reason he's the regular season points leader. And of course, he did win the All-Star race 2 years ago, but that was at a much shorter.
Don't see many of these things out here anymore. Got that little road runner right there. $1970. I was 16 when this thing came out. I can smell it, and I can feel it. It's coming in. The one problem I have with Instagram is nobody's social. Come on, make comments instead of send pic here to so-and-so. Come on. Quit trying to live through somebody else's existence. You know, there's a term for it. It's validation whores.
Last 50 years. So, you know, it's not looking good.
We've invited scientists aboard the Sedna, people who are passionate about what they do and who have dedicated their lives to saving the ocean's large predators.
Biologists Pedro Afonso and George Fontes have joined the Sedna 4 for this expedition. These scientists from the University of the Azores are also skilled fishermen who are able to catch a shark with a line and hooks specially designed not to hurt the animal. They will team up with Randall Arauz, a scientist and activist who has become well known internationally for his campaigns against shark fishermen, especially those who practice shark finning.
Our first stop was the Azores, in the middle of the Atlantic. It's a place I love. It's filled with history. It's a sailor's paradise. On the beaches, the docks, even in the bars, you can feel the history and smell the sea.